sit here as the great-grandson of a former slave, Henry Brown, who was freed by the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. I had the fortune of meeting her as a small child.
All right, good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? I'm James Hayden. This is Crusader Talk, podcast and radio, though we're not transmitted on the radio yet. Someday, I dream big. It's my own little radio station. We're put on by the Civis Gravis Society. You can reach them at civisgravis.org. As always, we'd like to thank our emergency personnel, responders, military personnel for keeping us safe and healthy. As always, we're trying to, pardon me, convert all the sheeple back to people, free-thinking minds, but it doesn't seem the world really wants that. Let's see, today is March 6, 2021, moved into a new month, lots of things going on. Mostly tonight, as you could probably tell by the intro, we're going to talk about reparations. What was in that intro was Danny Glover was talking to Congress about H.R. 40. It's being advertised almost as if it's the vote for reparations, and it's not. It's a vote to conduct a study to determine if we should have reparations or offer reparations. And even the people that are speaking to Congress on it are more of speaking on it as it becoming an immediate legality. And discussing it in Congress is awesome. That's where it should happen. But my lead up into my show tonight is that Biden has a cabinet member, and the gentleman really, he's stating, we'll get to it later on in an HBO interview, that he wants to just bypass Congress and that we need to do it immediately. And I'm stating that in the opening of the show because it's a heated topic. I hate to say that racism became a really big thing in 2020. It seems to have reared its ugly head again. So I want to be clear about what we're speaking about and what we're talking about. After many decades of hearing murmurs, reparations are back. And what that means is originally, I forget the original, it went before the House Representatives, the original HR bill, which again, originally was to conduct a study, but they never did the study. They would go back to Congress to conduct the study, and they're back trying to get it passed through once again. It seems that race really is just a secondary excuse in trying to push it through Congress. And that's Biden and his own cabinet members doing that, his committee members. And the word demand is absolutely correct. It's been stated by the Biden committee through Cedric Richards that we don't want to wait for Congress. The only way to create subsidies is through Congress or yet another executive order, which is probably what's about to happen. So the point I'm getting at is that it's extortion. Since he doesn't want to wait for Congress and he can write an executive order, he's just going to do so. I would hope at this point, because it's not really an emergency. I apologize if there are people out there that find it to be and they're angry, but it's not necessarily an emergency where you would have to bypass Congress. And it would be righteous to do a complete study beforehand. That way, if it's shot down or passed, there's a study, there's information, and an education process we went through to come to that decision. So no one feels absolutely forced. But we are being demanded to bypass the law, demanding that we bypass the discussion on the topic, discussing it with its supporters, with its antagonists, omitting and canceling questions about its legalities and its integrity, wanting to omit, bypass, jump over, jump through, run around, the entire integrity and financial responsibility of what reparations would do. This makes the situation an idealistic fascist action, almost benignly titled reparations. softens the way that they want to present it and execute it. And I'm gonna bring an old, God rest his soul, rest in peace. I know there's a lot of haters, but I'm gonna bring up his name and one of his terms. Rush Limbaugh, he had a term, neo-prog, which is, neo-progressives. So in one perspective, the neo-progs have found a new way to rob you without you venturing out of your home. If they're going to bypass Congress, then they're robbing you. It's that simple and that plain. So tonight we have Kev back on the air. I'm going to bring him on here just a second. As long as I can figure out how to push the buttons right. I need a sound engineer. I need a script writer. I need somebody who's really good at going to Dunkin' Donuts and bringing back large coffees. But everybody, this is Kev. He was on last week. He's a black gentleman. I hope it's okay to... Are you with me, boss? Uh-oh. Here we go. Are you there?
Are you there?
There we go.
Jimmy, are you there?
Yeah, I told you.
There you are. Yeah, you really do need a sound guy.
Well, I got the script in one thing. I got the mic hanging over my face. I've got all these little icon buttons, and they can probably tell I'm 50. I've got bifocals, and plus, again, who doesn't want like a full staff service doing everything? All I have to do is think it, say it, somebody will type it out. Then I have to update the blog, do all of the social media, and wah, all the way home. So anyways.
Absolutely, man. Shit, promote yourself up into a lovely, cushy position where you just talk on the radio and everybody gets your stuff. Actual radio stations have been doing that for years by telling people they were hiring.
Oh, yeah, I have, well, when I was married, my wife's cousin was a local radio and DJ announcer. And you make more at McDonald's, I'll be honest with you. Unless you get to the level
and that's why it's an internship.
Right, unless you're on CNN or Fox or you've got a real big blog following. We don't make much money here. It's all about the heart.
Absolutely. That makes sense. All right, so where would you like to kick this off at?
Well, of course, let's see. Let me go back through my little script here. I got a whole bunch of junk. So, I mean, how do you think, or what do you feel, do you think that there's an emergent need to bypass Congress, an executive order to get reparations paid out immediately?
I mean, I think Congress in itself is an emergent need. Like, there's an emergent need for it to have new blood in there. It should not take so long that the president should even have the ability to be like, well, it's taken long enough. I'm just going to write this down and make it a thing. It should never take a group of people that long to come to a decision unless the decision is, should we or shouldn't we go to war? And as far as bypassing Congress, well, it's not like there haven't been presidents in our past history that haven't done it. But most of the time, it's been to good and bad results. And as far as reparations goes, because I don't know the entire history, but I know there's been at least two presidents who bypassed Congress. I'm pretty sure of that.
Well, in my reading,
look it up.
Where reparations actually come from is if you go way back. There's actually a particular black gentleman's name. Unfortunately, I can't remember. I read a ton of information. His former owner wrote him a letter telling him how wonderful he was and needed him back and wanted to hire him back to do all the work that he used to do, but pay him and pay him well. The gentleman ended up turning around and sued him in court for all the money that he should have earned as a slave. And that's where reparations came from.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was one smart motherfucker.
And righteously so. Unfortunately, nobody had a public education plan to let former slaves know that they could do this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, if you fast forward into 1989, you're coming into 1989. Reagan's coming out of office. George Bush, the dad, because he's not technically a senior, younger Bush, he's GW. I forget what senior Bush is, G, whatever his middle initial is. But he was running strong. The economy was really, really well. We had a lot of influence globally. So America was liking him. And the Democrats, the first time they ever entered anything about reparations in Congress, pardon me, was in 1989, and it was to do the study. And that's really what they're talking about now with H.R. 40, is to actually do a study into reparations, and if they were to pass it, how much are you going to pay and who are you going to pay? Are we going to pay people who can only prove genetic relation to slaves? Is it for everybody who's black in America? And then you get into, there were other races that were slaves. You've heard me whine and complain about 100,000 Irishmen dead underneath the canals in New York. What I agree that there at least needs to be a study before you even vote on whether to do it or not.
Well, yeah. I mean, it would be nice if I could just get what was promised with that 40 acres and a mule, because, a check sounds great, but I don't care if you give me 40 acres in Montana or 40 acres in Arizona in the middle of the desert. It's still 40 acres that I'll happily take.
Well, I agree completely. There's a lot I could do with 40 acres and a mule, believe it or not. But no, I wonder how that law was actually worded. Was that worded to slaves or slaves and their descendants?
The law for 40 acres and a mule?
Yeah.
It was something that was talked about. It was something that was talked about because the United States had an entire working class that wasn't working, and their masters were getting them to work for dirt cheap anyway. I mean, they knew they had to get paid, but they didn't know what a reasonable salary or a reasonable amount of funds was until they had already started working and discussed pay. So, they took what they could get, and they were very happy about it. And their masters just put them right back in the same places that they were living before. Some of them stayed off the plantations and never came back, but some of them stayed because that's all they knew. Anyway, I'm not 100% sure if that's the exact wording or not. But I am 100% sure that if they gave me that option, I would take it. As far as reparations is concerned, you're right. There definitely needs to be a study and, a deciding factor on who gets reparations. And I would be extremely upset if I got reparations tomorrow, but if I got reparations the next day after the study and they gave me $50,000. Because if you're going to study people that need reparations, you should start with the first people that got robbed. I mean, look at every Indian tribe that has to live on a reservation or owns a casino now only because of all the laws that they fought for.
I will say one of the advantages that Native Americans did get, their reservations are actually their own nation. They don't have to observe federal law. They don't have to observe the state's law around them. But I agree. They got,
for the most part.
Well, it's kind of a strange thing. They got robbed. But had they developed better boats and guns and floated up and landed on Europe, they would have wanted to do the same thing.
I don't know. That's 50-50 because people say that, and I've heard that argument before, but at the same time, I think back in my head to the entire argument about what the hell is it? The Vikings going to Africa. The Vikings had, I believe it was Palestinians or Israelis or something like that. The Vikings actually had Israelis and fought wars with them. So, they could come across the ocean with better weapons and want to go to war, or they could come across the ocean with better weapons